Hey guys, Joe here from JCS-Charting. This is our performance chart of the DAX swing trades I do myself. 10,000 points already up for June. We have one more day left on Monday. That adds up to 74,000 DAX points since September. So we totally outperformed the index by itself. If you want to know how to do it, or the way I do it, you're welcome to join at www.jcs-charting.com. Let's hop into the charts. And we start off with a little throwback of my Discord. What you see here is the DAX channel. It's the H4 thread. This is an update of the 19th of June. A SETRA chart here, that's our subcycle chart. We use both futures and SETRA, and we actually put it together because sometimes you miss out price levels during the cash. And then it's actually better to have a look at the futures as well. I use the JFD indication for that. However, we were looking here at a subcycle low at the end of the previous week, and I also came up with the latest Elliott Wave count, which worked out perfectly. We did a 23.6 retracement. We come to that later on. We had that cycle low here right in the middle of that time frame, and that worked out perfectly. Then I usually come up with a projection like that. I was going for a secondary low. I explained that here usually in these brief explanations as well. It made a lower low then actually, and as you can see, the projection worked out perfectly. We were hitting the blue 100%. And we were going for that pullback to retest the March all-time highs here at 23,500. That is what happened during the middle of the week, and then DAX turned around and pulled up very strongly to hit the min targets of that blue sequence, and you see the projection worked out perfectly. Members also come up with trading ideas. For instance, Sebe, he came up with that inverted shoulder pattern. I put that into the charts and for him, and I calculate targets for them and also add sequences, so they actually participate on that as well. By the way, we were hitting the 138 here, that green sequence almost on the dot. And I want you to pay attention here on the left. This, for instance, is advanced membership, so you have much more channels. For example, trading psychology. I explain here briefly a lot of reading stuff about psychology, the three killers, which is hope, fear, and greed, inconvenience, truth, about being capitalized, ego, and so on, how to use the right financial instruments. What is hedging actually? Most people have no idea what it is. It sounds cool, but it's not. It's a very high advanced tool to protect your portfolio. I explain volatility, money management, and astro basics are in the making. And I also opened a new channel, which is the Gamma Open Interest and Volume Reports. And once we click in here, we see the latest updates. I actually was posting that on X, and this is actually very important. This is now the latest Gamma exposure from last week after the OPEX has been passed through. So this is now for the September contract, and you noticed, have a look at that Gamma exposure, the yellow bars. This is what the market makers intend to do. The market makers are not the dealers. That's what also is important to understand. This is actually where the real money has to be at. And you see here the 25,000 even higher has a very high Gamma reading still. That means we had that already in the last OPEX for the June contract, and they rolled them over into September. And these high Gamma exposure readings, they were already building up during the lows of April 7th we made during that period. So there's a very, very high probability still that we see these levels. And we're going to see also the same once we have a look at the delta exposure. That means the rate of change of these delta readings. And we have the same high readings here of calls waiting above 25,000. There's also going to be a put wall down there that decreased here by quite a lot. So, and these levels are cash adjusted, by the way. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see these levels very soon, and there might be a turnaround at these levels. And I will give you a more detailed analysis, of course, at my Discord for that. And another interesting tool to look at is the smart money flow, especially for the particular index. This is the smart money flow of the DAX, and this data is provided by my partner wallstreetkorea.com. And what do we see? There was a peak of smart money right on the 22nd of May, and since then they were selling. DAX made actually new all-time highs into the beginning of June, and since then smart money is actually just oscillating, or it kept decreasing. There was a little increase by that buying pressure last Friday. We are just below all-time highs. So what is smart money telling us here? We are looking for divergences. So let me just see if I can draw that. So if we run into a new all-time high, so we're making new highs at the index, well, smart money doesn't get above these highs. There is a negative bearish divergence to smart money. That means big guys are selling, and that would be our sell signal, which I assume to come up very soon. And let's have a look at the live charts. This is our hourly JFD indication chart. I came up with this inverted shoulder pattern. That was that neckline that was holding their entire midweek Wednesday and also on Thursday here with that drop. I kept telling my members 23,443 is very important. That would trigger that red sequence to run deeper, at least to 23,300. But as long as we stay above there, that is what that projection also was telling us. As long as we stay above, there's a very high probability to go back to this high at least, or even to hit the 100% target of that pattern. That selling here looked like a clean ABC. The 100% target was at 23,511. So that requirement was met quite nicely. I came up with a setup for all members in that chart. So that gave us a nice risk reward of almost 4. And the profit zone was right here, and I came up then again with that green sequence, which triggered above 23,793 for min targets all the way up to 24,087. This is also where I took a lot of profits on a Friday evening. And these 138 levels, they like to reverse. This is what happened on Friday evening. They reversed, but then they kept buying it up just into the close of the US session. Okay, what's going to be next? You see here the SETRA indication. It's a 4-hour time frame chart, and I put 2 patterns into that chart. First in red here, that broadening top, which, as it says already, it's a topping pattern, but it is also allowed to break up. You need a starting point, a high, a low, a higher high, a lower low, and we are waiting for the third touch of that line, which is the higher high once again to trigger that broadening top. Most of the time, once they touch that line, they do a breakout and pull back. At this point, we don't know yet if they break up or down. And once we combine that with our timing, Elliott waves, and maybe also different patterns, we probably know what's going on. For this case here, I also added a bearish shark pattern, which got its trigger point between that all-time high here, 24,467, all the way up to 24, let's say 24,900, so just below that red line. That means somewhere here I expect a temporary top at DAX for a summer correction. That theory also fits my latest Elliott count. I will show here any minute. Note that the Elliott count got much higher targets. That's why I put these expansions up here. They might run all the way up to 25,863. Once you check the gamma, that is actually possible. And we stay on the H4 time frame, still the SETRA indication. Here you see the low of April 7th, and this is my latest Elliott count. That first impulse was my wave 1, wave 2, and then we had a very clean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as wave 3. We had a long and time-consuming wave 4 to shake off most participants. There was also a lot of disagreement at my channel. I kept saying, guys, if this is a wave 4, it's designed to shake off everyone. So this one here was very quick and dirty, and this one was long, time-consuming, makes everyone frustrated. We also hit the 23.6 retracement of that entire rally at that time. So that is the most bullish retracement we talk about, and we had a lot of gaps down here. We closed most of these gaps, and we left a lot of gaps at the bottom. This one here, this one is open. That was here on Thursday, and Friday closed that gap. So to the upside, we only have that gap here open just below the all-time high. So we can drag this one over to here. And that leaves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gaps to the downside, just considering that rally, which is actually bullish, I must say. There's usually low volume associated with it, but this is how these rallies look like at DAX once he starts to accelerate up, most of the time out of nowhere. This here's the target zone. Note that once we just peak a little bit above that all-time high, it met the requirements for a completed wave 5. So any high at above 24,480 qualifies for that. The main target is 25,362. This is, I believe, the 100% duplication of wave 1. And you can also add the 61.8 extension of wave 3, which is much higher at 26,194. Sometimes there are exceptions when a wave 5 starts to expand, and then be very, very careful with shorts, because that thing can then easily squeeze by 1,000, 1,500 points out of nowhere. Be aware of that if you plan to short DAX sometime next week. I continue with Bitcoin because that was very interesting and very profitable trades of mine last week. We were looking for a cycle low. This year was that low last Sunday. I was buying that. I kept giving that information to my members as well. On Sunday evening, I said once we are hitting 99,649, it's going to be a buy. We might expand to 97,560, but we are very close to that subcycle low. And it looks like Bitcoin made, some people call it a bullish flag channel. To be very precise, it's not a flag channel, it's a descending broadening wedge, because its price is expanding just a little bit, but it is. And then I came up with my sequences. The green sequence finished on the dot. You see how accurate these sequences work. Exactly, we topped out at 108.270. You see here very precise hits, first of the 127, then of the 138. Small pullback. Here was that pullback. So we take that green sequence out. There's a blue one left that triggered right here. And yeah, as you can see, the 138 is pulling back here as well. So I combine different sequences and different time frames. I put them into the charts. I add cycles to it, so you know where we are. Most likely we run into that cycle low here. It's going to be a bit earlier. It might be this weekend already that we see another cycle low on Sunday to hit then the 109.785. This is the last target of that blue sequence, and also the third touch of that descending broadening wedge up here. And if we do, usually there's another pullback associated with it. After it breaks out, it comes back, and then if momentum remains bullish, we're gonna see much higher targets. I can show you something like that. This would be the 100% move of that descending broadening wedge. We have 13,291. You take it to the trigger point, wherever it would be. Then we end up somewhere at 124,000, which is also one of my long-term targets out of the daily, which is for members only. There you also see my yearly outlook, which is, by the way, very bullish in the year of Jupiter. That's what you have to understand. That's why I think whatever pullback we see into summer, I think it's a pullback, it's a correction. It's not going to be a crash everyone talks about. Okay, let's jump back into the Discord. It's the S&P 500 channel this time. It's a daily thread. And yeah, our projection was actually very spot on here as well. Price was a bit off, but timing actually worked nice until we went into that last ADT, which was around the 19th, 20th of June. I thought it was going to be a top, but it turned out to be a low. That's what you need to understand once you work with astro turning dates. They are just turning dates. You don't know if they are a low or a high. So we understood just on time that this date is not going to be a high, and this is what I wrote last weekend for my members. Most likely we are running into a low, and for the next astro turning date, which starts at the end of next week on that long holiday, I assume we run into a topish pattern at the S&P 500. My VIX theory, by the way, all these patterns here, they have been projected in advance, and as you can see, it actually works out. The VIX, or the volatility, is also suggesting a low into the 4th of July. Note, we have to give it a tolerance of a few days, and note that the volatility likes to rise before the index tops out. This is most of the time the case. And I also want to show you the gamma here, because that's actually quite interesting. This was my update from also last weekend. It's not on that frame, but as you can see, there's a lot of gamma exposure above 6,200, and I assume we're going to see that first before we actually top out. We are very close, or we were already very close to these levels on Friday. We can easily see 6,300 next week. And most of the time there's a squeeze associated before a larger correction starts. Here is, by the way, my weekly outlook. It hasn't been changed for the last few weeks. We had a so-called Popgun here at the bottom with that candle. This one here is trapped in between these two large green candles, or white candles in this case, and it popped to the upside. It made already one duplication to the upside. It might does a second one. This would be at 6,400. So this projection might run a bit higher into next week. And most of the time, these pop guns, they pull back to the trigger. The trigger is that high of that candle at 5,535. That would be a very intense pullback as a summer correction, but it's possible. And this target remains on as long as there's no new pop gun created here somewhere at the top. We switch into the Nasdaq 100, same chart, weekly chart here, cash indication, and same pop gun as in the S&P 500 here. This candle is embedded between these two large green candles. It popped to the upside. It made already one duplication to the upside. The second duplication is at 23,154, so Nasdaq is much closer to it for next week. And the pullback is that high here, 19,447. So that's from the current point already 3,000 points to the downside for a summer correction. And be aware, especially with all these retrogrades in my Astro outlook, there are going to be explosive moves. I kept telling that you on Twitter. Most people laughed about it, but I believe most people or most participants are not in the game anymore. They just got wiped out because of these moves, and desize your positions. That's what I can tell you. Do proper money management, have enough capital, and so on. I explain that all in my Discord to stay in the game. It's always good to check on the Dow Jones as well. It's the oldest index we have at the US. We have a very clean inverse shoulder pattern. It triggered right here. It pulled back and it triggered that 100% sequence above 43,372 for min targets between 45,211, 45,954. Presently, the Dow is the only one compared to the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 which didn't make new all-time highs yet. It's still below. Here's the all-time high at 45.54. So presently, there's an intermarket bearish divergence on, but we are a bit far away from the Astro turning date. So I rather would have a look at a divergence between the industrials and the transportations. We're going to have a look at that chart any minute. This here is a daily chart, by the way, and the first target, by the way, for that pattern here is 24,231. And this is what I mean between the transportations and the industrials. It's a weekly chart here. We had that large divergence here on April 7th, that low where the transportation went below the lows of October of 2023. The industrials stayed well above it. I think it was a 61.8 retracement on the dot here. And we are looking for the next divergence. You see, though the industrials made a kind of double top here, almost on the dot, not precisely, but it counts as a double top to the highs of December. So they topped out here actually in February, and the transportations actually topped out in November already. So what divergence we are looking for? A lower high again at the transportations, and we are looking for new all-time highs, a higher high at the industrials. That would give us the sell signal concerning the Dow theory. Here, and last but not least, I would like to show you the stock channel. We have plenty of stocks here. That was Coinbase, by the way. We had a great analysis here weeks ago with that inverted shoulder pattern, and the breakout worked perfectly. I came up just on time with that green sequence here, so green at 100%. This was a trigger candle, and then we had the typical pullback after that 100% triggered, and here's where we hit all the min targets of that green sequence, and then a member came up with, Joe, do you have any higher targets? I said yes. The green sequence finished right here, and the blue 100%, you don't see it here on the right, is at 360 for higher levels at Coinbase, for instance. There are also different ones. Basler was a great spot. We are watching that stocks for a very long time. I came up here with that buy point at 520, and yeah, this is where we bought. Where I actually added a lot of positions more. We had that green sequence here, that little one. We pulled back into that next cycle low. You see here how accurate these timing tools actually work. There was another green sequence which yeah, topped out around 10 euros, and last week we finished another green sequence and we broke out completely to the upside. Basler now at 12.12 already. And yeah, very close to higher targets here within our green sequence. We had Big Bear, for instance, as well. We were going for a buy at that second red line at 234. That is the red 138 for that time frame here. And that worked actually out. It took a little longer into the next period of that time frame, and then yeah, a follow-through candle was a trigger of that sequence. I think on Friday we hit already that second target of $5.54. Tesla, we were going for a buy here as well. I came up with that Popgun idea that, yeah, actually happened. We pulled back last week, I assume, because we're very close to that line here, which is a timing for a buy at Tesla. I think we were at 325 somewhere here. I still assume we are running higher here for 380, even 400 for $25 at Tesla. And here's how it works. You can just search for any stock we analyze as Microsoft, BYD, British American Tobacco, PayPal, Meter, Amazon, Apple, First Majestic Silver. I haven't looked at that for a while. That was quite interesting. We were watching that large inverted head shoulder pattern. We can go into the live chart here any minute. The green zone was a large buying zone. We were at the bottom of that green zone here all the time. Let's hop into the live chart for that. So here we go. Yeah, as I said, we were watching for that buying zone here. That was somewhere between that golden pocket of 61.8 to 76.4 of that rally here from that bottom. We triggered now that inverted head shoulder pattern here. We are staying above the neckline. We triggered that green sequence, which is the most important tool to make sure this is our confirmation we're actually running higher. They have very high probabilities of running then within the sequence of the min targets. Here you see how accurate they work. We hit the 127 on the dot, we pulled back, and I still assume we run at least to 899. This is the second min target or even higher. Or we also hit these target lines here of that bullish wave wedge I put into the charts here for a very long time, and the targets for that inverted head shoulder patterns are even higher at 1062 and 1168. Yeah, I'm hitting already 29 minutes, and that's very long for my videos. I'm gonna stop here. If you're interested in analysis, what I do crypto, I do stocks, I do indexes. Of course, I have my main things I trade myself. But if you have the advanced package, you're welcome to ask. And whenever I find time, I do have a look at that. Most members are happy. You can also check on Trustpilot. They're actually very nice reviews. Thanks for that. And I see my members on Monday. I will be on a little holiday at the beginning of next week, but I will inform them on my Discord. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please leave me a like, a nice comment, and I see you in 2 to 3 weeks again. I won't do them every week now, but I think I gave you very important and good information on this one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.